Hi, I'm Gyi from Attorney Sync, and I am sweating.
And I am Conrad Som from Mockingbird, and I have learned that wearing a cowboy hat in Nashville with bad air conditioning makes one sweat as well.
But we don't just talk about our sweaty habits here in Nashville. We also talk about legal marketing. Conrad, what else are we talking about today?
As usual, we are starting with the news, and then we're going to move on to an amazing live session at the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Summit. I'm going to make all of you guys who aren't here have a huge feeling of FOMO for not being here and asking us questions. We're going to take questions from the audience, and as most of you know, our best episodes always are responses to those user questions.
Music.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
All right, everyone, welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. As usual, we start with the news. The most important thing that we learned, we just talked about this at the summit, is the addition of AI watermarks to both visual and written AI content. And what does that mean? It is now very easy for technology to understand whether or not some of that content that you've been barfing onto the web was written by our good friends over at Claude, or some of those pictures were developed, you know, like I would be taller and I might have more hair. That's very easy to identify. Now, does Google care? We don't know, but it is very easy at this point in time to flip the switch and penalize anyone who's done so.
Yeah, I think that's right. And again, I think the other issue, and we talked about this at the summit, so for folks that aren't here to create some more FOMO for it, is this idea that imagery on your Google business profiles, anything that's detectable, it's not just the machines though. You got to remember there's people out there that are reading this stuff. And so when they come to your website and they see obvious AI slop, they go to your social profiles and they're seeing obvious AI slop. What impact does that leave them? Now look, when we say AI slop, we're not saying don't use AI necessarily. You know, there's plenty of good examples of creative social videos that are obviously AI, but in the context of understanding how these machines are using slop for training, the impact on users, I think you want to be cautious about how you use it.
Judicious.
Judicious.
What you mean is don't do that.
That's right.
I think you said that earlier.
Yes. Another thing we talked about here, breaking news as reported, I think Joy Hawkins found this. We'll give a shout out to Joy. It's been reported by Barry at Search Engine Roundtable. Google AI overview local results. So let's say that again. Google AI overview local results. So it's like a local pack built into the AI overview, which is I think we're gonna see more and more of that, are pulling from low quality listicle sites. And so we hear that headline and everyone's like, what do they want to do?
Let's go make a listicle. Gyi, were there recently any SEO agencies that made listicles about how great they are?
There's many. And in fact, you know, again, some of the prompts that we track that relate to SEO services, like in our industry, not surprisingly, they are prolific.
They are prolific. You want to name names?
I do not.
You are.
You go look up for yourself. Just do a search for best law firm SEO companies and click through to the citations.
All right. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, send us a comment, ask us a question, and we will do our best to honestly answer you on the next episode.
Let's take a break. Hey, Lunch Hour Legal Marketing fans. Want to know how to commit malpractice? We've got Rio here from Alps Insurance, sharing some horror stories from their claims file. In today's brief, we're covering cheap clients and how they create expensive problems.
Yeah, so today's tale from the claims file is this little story about Nick. Nick is a business attorney in Texas working with an early stage startup. Cash was tight and the founder was clear. Let's keep costs down. No extra research, no specialists. So Nick gave a verbal warning about the risks. You know, he agreed to move forward, but he never documented those scope limits or the client's consent. So when a regulatory issue later derailed the deal, the client didn't remember saving money. He remembered what Nick didn't do. And in Texas, juries don't love ambiguity. So with no documentation in the file, Nick had very little to point to and a malpractice claim built entirely on what wasn't written down.
I mean, this is not uncommon in the agency world where cheap clients are actually some of the most expensive to have. So when clients choose shortcuts, document the risks and their informed consent. Otherwise, the shortcut leads straight to you and a malpractice misstep. Learn how to avoid those at alpsinsurance.com.
And we're back. And Conrad, as you mentioned, we are here in Nashville. We're in front of a live studio audience.
Thousands of people packed in.
Too many, so many people. It's hard to, you can't even see all the hands up in the back.
Did we run out of tickets?
But we ran out of tickets, ran out of drink tickets.
We ran out of AC.
We never had AC in the first place. That's a good constructive feedback point. Don't do no AC in Nashville in August for any of the event organizers out there. What were some of the major themes that you recall from the summit? What were some of the highlights for you?
So I think the interesting thing, the highlight for me was bringing people to the stage who have earned it, who never get the opportunity. I think one of the things that we did a great job of was bringing in some voices and some people who don't get the recognition, frankly, because they're not paying to speak at these massive conferences. And I think we had a better conference because of it.
Yeah, no question. I mean, like any event, like the quality of the event really relates to like the people who show up, the people on stage, even to the sponsors, right? Like curating that experience is really, really important, making sure that we're balanced in that ecosystem. And so again, like you hear it, it came up in a lot of the Q&A, it came up in a lot of the panel discussions, but when you hear people who are actually in the trenches doing the work, right? They're doing the community events, they're creating the strategy. There's just so much value that's unlocked from hearing from those people share those stories.
Yeah, I love, we've talked about this endorsed sponsor model for the podcast, it being somewhat different. We basically only work with people that we really like, know, like, and trust. One of the things that came out of the conference here is we kicked out a bunch of vendors who wanted to come, but we didn't want this to be a vendor event. We wanted it to be about lawyers and in-house marketers, and more than 86% of the attendees were lawyers or in-house marketers, which is what we wanted. The other thing is, because of the vendors that we choose to know, like, and trust, it has not been a gross pitch fest, which I see at almost every conference.
That's a really good point. But however, be constructively critical, and we won't put anybody on the spot. You had made a point about Ignite not having the same vibe as you thought last year. Want to expand on what you thought about that?
Yeah, so I love the Ignite talks. I do like when so for the listeners, the Ignite talks are 5-minute talks. They have 20 slides that auto advance every 15 seconds. And for the people who did an Ignite talk, both last time and this time, hats off to you. Hats off to you. Very well done. They're fun. I think we should do a better job of making them a little more quirky and off-kilter, a little more off-topic.
Yeah.
I love the political rant that we had last year. So I want to lean in.
Joe Patrice, they're amazing.
Joe Patrice was great. Like, there were a bunch of things. There was some great talks. But I love the, like, slightly quirky, a little freaky, different.
And not that hers was quirky or freaky.
Wow, okay.
It's certainly different. We'll be next year announcing the Byrus Award for Best Ignite Talk, because she's so cool under pressure, both last year and then that story she told based on last year. We thought that was that's what we're looking for for Ignite.
Yeah. Okay, we also had at the conference, we had 3 really unique things. We had Sasquatch show up. We had a mermaid on a panel. And we had a t-shirt cannon. I made some unfriends with some of our audience members with the t-shirt cannon.
Yeah.
We're looking.
I think you fired your t-shirt cannon at Elliot Johnson and knocked his Coke all over himself.
He's a big guy. I think he could take me.
He was very gracious about it.
He was. Okay, good.
Good thing we invested in that extra event insurance, Jessica, for making sure you did that.
Okay, questions from the audience. What would you guys like to know? Anything? Yes, we got one in the back. That's Mr. Semmelroth, if I can see correctly.
Tim's straight back from his workout. It takes him about 20 minutes because he has to go to the most fancy gym in town to get the proper amount of weight. Tim, welcome.
Thank you. So my question is on the topic of measuring brand awareness. We all learned at this conference that Near Media's legal marketing intelligence program is the gold standard. But what are some DIY tactics to measure that?
This segment brought to you by Near Media.
Yes. Tim, your check is in the mail.
The DIY, and this is really unbelievably important. The brand, we talked about brand ad nauseum here. I think is really important. There are a couple of things, and we did ask some of the panelists, so I'm going to steal 2 of their answers. Number 1 is running branded pay-per-click campaigns and see what goes on with your budget. Ideally, that is moving up and to the right if your brand is being referred to, if it is recognized, if it is causing people to call you. And so the pay-per-click budget that starts to grow up and to the right for your branded terms, very important. I would include in that individual lawyer names. Okay, we talked a little bit about name search, but I would include in your branded query list are people looking for individual lawyers. And to riff further, one of the things that we saw in some of the call transcripts as we were looking through is people weren't necessarily looking for the name of the firm, you know, the John Jones law firm. They were looking for, in one case, it was Alexandria, who works at the John Jones law firm. So understanding what people are looking at for individual attorneys if you have a larger firm. The next thing from a DIY perspective for managing and monitoring brand queries is Google Search Console. You'll start to be able to see those things tick up or not. Is it completely accurate? Absolutely not, but none of these things are. But I would like to see both your pay-per-click budget increasing as well as Search Console references to your brand and individual attorney names to increase. Do you have anything else?
Well, I would just say, you know, someone at the conference said that the cost of brand search clicks is going up. And so if I really want to do like the free version of this, I'd focus on Search Console. And again, directional growth over time as you make those investments. But I really like what you had said about the transcripts. I mean, you could hear there, you know, if you Bill Biggs talked about this and asking multiple times throughout the representation, but you can get a good sense from listening to your clients and your prospective clients about the sense of brand. Now, they're not going to say brand, right? So it's not like, oh yeah, it's brand, right? Or, but when you're asking like, hey, how did you hear about it? And you're hearing things like, I attended the community event. And I think this is another important thing is like in the CRM, we talked a lot about touch points, but when you see prospective clients and clients that have multiple touch points throughout the journey, you know, maybe they subscribe to a giveaway, maybe they're on an email list, maybe they're scanning a QR code at your event. Those to me are brand signals, even though they're not like looking for you, you're in their mind because they had to take some kind of action or have some kind of experience with your firm. And so I'd be putting those into the brand bucket.
We'll go into this a little bit, but I like where you're going with this. I think mining your inbound call data for 2 things. Number 1, how did you hear about us? I love knowing the percentage of times that we ask prospects, how did you hear about us? And ask that question early on. If the script does not include asking that question early on, what happens is your intake person will realize that this is not a qualified lead and they will not ask that question, which is a fail because you want it, whether or not it's a qualified lead or a non-qualified lead, you still want to know why they actually contacted you. So I would want to have that piece of data. And the second thing, and you can start training Claude on this, and so for our listeners, we talked about this at the conference, but I'd be very careful about making sure that you are securely connecting Claude with CallRail. And CallRail's got a great checkbox where you can be very careful and deliberate about the personal identifiable information that you do not feed into Claude. So I would be very careful about that. But you can start to understand what does brand mean when you ask why people called you. And those things can include things like, you have a great reputation. That's a brand, right? Or you are everywhere, right? That is a brand. And then you have the other elements on brand, TV, radio, billboards, etc. So I would be looking at all of those elements. And I think what you want are more categories, not fewer. So let me give a simplistic example. Billboards is great. The sign at the Little League, at the Murphy and Murphy playgrounds, right? Like that's really, really helpful. The more specific and the more category, the less you try and categorize everything into a few number of things, the better. But you can start to recognize what those brand signals look like.
Now, and I'm gonna give you another answer to this question, which is that you should be doing more than the do-it-yourself version. Think about the money that you invest in brand building, especially if you're an offline media buyer. If you're buying TV, you're buying radio, even if maybe you're just heavy community and you're not actually doing media, take a look at what that budget looks like. Now, you don't have to use Near Media. We love Near Media. You don't have to use Mockingbird and Attorney Sync. There are a lot of ways, there are a lot of tools, platforms that you can do user behavior research testing online. You can do consumer research online, especially if you're doing it in a very concentrated geo. You don't need a huge budget to do that. But I would encourage you to say, look, if we're going to spend 100,000, 200,000, $1 million, $3 billion on brand building, $25,000, $10,000 to actually have research to say, is this actually growing the brand and giving us some insight into the impact of the brand, the aided and unaided brand awareness in my community? It's a no-brainer. Again, doing this, this comes up, we talk about this all the time. Greg Sterling's been doing it a long time. Mim's been doing it a long time. Blumenthal's been doing it a long time. We've been doing it a long time. I think all of us would say, when you see the user behavior journey and when you see the responses to creative testing, it changes your whole perspective of the landscape. Again, we are performance, direct response, demand capture marketers by training in our DNA. And I think that, and you've heard it at the conference, right? This has been one of the themes, I guess one of my themes is that brand plays even in performance. And so we're so frustrated, be like, we can't measure brand, right? We can't measure it. It's like, you can, you're just not deploying any resources against it, especially in the context of these huge budgets. So, a couple $1,000s to actually have some research to see the impact of this, huge brand budget that you're spending, it's a no-brainer.
All right.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Next question up front.
Hello, Allison Kitchell. Been hit twice by launched T-shirts, so thank you.
Now it's on the official record. Now we have no plausible deniability.
That was Alicia, right? From the Ritchie law firm who hit you a T-shirt?
Yeah.
Not Conrad. Not Conrad.
My question is about what advice would you give to someone who wants to dip a toe into some advertising to help build brand awareness? I'm thinking things like meta ads or maybe Reddit. Like, is this a DIY situation or is this a go hire a vendor? And how would you think about that?
There's two answers to this. One of the problems with brand building is the dip a toe. How small of the toe are we talking about? And the reason I say that is putting $1,000, but I'll use an extreme example. Putting $1,000 budget into the Nashville market over the next month will do nothing for you. There's almost a minimum threshold of this, both in terms of volume and duration, right? And so the brand building thing is a long-term thing. And we talk about not boiling the ocean, so I don't think you have to cover all of Nashville, but I don't like the idea of of experimenting with a long-term tactic with a short-term time window. So I think I reject off the bat the dip a toe conversation. The cheapest way to spend money on brand is to put that in front of people who are considering your firm through retargeting and looking for that assist. That is going to be the most effective use of a small brand building dip a toe in the market budget. I don't know that you're going to be able to track that necessarily all that well. The metrics of these are very difficult to be like, all right, I tried this little thing and it may or may not have worked. I think instead I would change your mindset to, I'm going to spend money on the most cost-effective brand building things, which to me are your CRM database, retargeting. Those two are no-brainers to me. And that's your first date with branding.
I don't disagree. I think that, again, this is like percentage of budgets and all that kind of jazz that we just talked about. And I do think that first-party audience building with CRM data, if you're not doing that, and retargeting is probably one of the first things to be doing. But I'm going to answer a slightly different way. Do you do any community event stuff? Just give me an example of a community event you're into. 10K, great.
Okay.
So you take the 10K and you as tightly target from a platform targeting perspective as you possibly can from, maybe some location, maybe there's some other targeting fields that you might want to fill out in terms of affinity and stuff in platform. but your message is all about the 10K, how you support. You have runners in the 10K. You put stories about the firm runners at the 10K. You give people an action to take. Like, do you give like water bottles out or something at the 10K? So hey, come get a water bottle at the 10K and blast that on Facebook. Because here's the thing. You're not trying to do like when we think of brand, like Conrad's right. It's like, it's long-term, it's building, it's trying to be in people's consideration set. But the hack, which is it's kind of brand. It's not direct response in the context of trying to generate clients. But I've been jumping up and down about this idea of you take the in-person event and you put digital media behind the work that you're doing in the community and get people to take some kind of action. So you're like, this is what the firm's doing at the event. Look for the water bottles, grab a water bottle. After the event, we're gonna buy folks lunch at this place. Here's a sign-up form back at my website. Capture their email. You're also gonna get regular 10K running and community event stuff from the firm to see where else we're going. Or maybe we're gonna be like, we're doing a free giveaway, or we're gonna match contribution dollars if it's a 10K to raise money, but you gotta come back to the website to sign up. And now you're gonna take that one event, you turn it into a branded thing, but they're also taking action because they're clicking through, coming back to your website. Now you've got retargeting, you capture their email, you can put them on the longer term distribution list. That's kind of the stuff that I'm thinking in terms of like, doesn't have to be huge budget, it's campaign focused, it's community involvement, and there's a brand and an action segment to it so that you're not just like, because this is the problem, it goes back to the questions like how you track this stuff, like use the branded media to get people to do stuff that can actually keep you in front of them over multiple touch points down the road. And again, to Conrad's point, once you get their email, you get opt-in permission to be able to send them messaging, the cost pers on retargeting and first-party audiences and email nurture go way down compared to just trying to like do the idea of like boiling the Nashville ocean, stuff like that. So that's the way that I'd be thinking about that.
Okay, 10K is super easy. I use 5K because I'm a little heavy, so we don't do the 10K thing, but like take the 10K concept, and there's two very easy things to do with that. One, you find the charity that it's supporting. They all support some charity. You do an interview with the charity. Now you have content around the charity. Number two, your other content is around running. This one 10K, dip your toe in the water here. You're going to target people who care about this charity. So now you look like a really wonderful, benevolent person over a law firm. And then you also target runners. And you take that content and you keep the content about that 10K and you keep it in front of them before, like after that event. Like this is how the event was. And then next year, you start becoming the advertising venue for that 10K. You start, again, the same people who care about Joe's, whatever, homeless house, whatever it might be, and runners. And it's the same group. You are now promoting the 10K. They're not promoting you, you are promoting the 10K. He said paid media, you're paying to stay in front of those people. You're paying to promote the 10K. That's the way, and the problem is the very small market of fit people who like running 10Ks. But like, it's the saturation of that small market. That's how I would dip my toe in the water. And every year, you just repeat that. You become the promoter of that 10K. And they will start to love you, and then like the whole running community, blah, blah, blah. You get the whole point.
Another idea too, leading up to the event, right? So you're like, we're gonna be at the 10K. We're doing a giveaway to, a gift card to go buy yourself new running shoes or something like that. Tag a friend. We're gonna pick somebody, follow the page, tag a friend. We're gonna do a giveaway for free running shoes for the 10K. But now again, you're growing followers on your page for an affinity audience. You're getting network effect because people who already know about it are gonna tag a friend that's not following. They're gonna follow, they're gonna tag another friend. So now you're increasing the network effect of the visibility for your page across all those other feeds. It's gonna attract other people that are interested in running. And then again, just keep doing that with the paid media behind it. I think one of the problems is like people get like this network effect idea and like I gotta publish on social. What they don't realize is that Meta is an advertising platform. You can go look up Reachpocalypse, but your organic reach on the social platforms is a lot lower than you think it is. Not everybody who follows your page sees it. That's where digital support, paid digital support helps because you can target specific affinity groups and then use that digital visibility to attract other people that are also interested in that subject.
100%.
Thanks for that question. You really got us thinking. That's fun.
Give me good.
Hello, my name is Jaslyn Benson with Angel Rays and Associates. First off, this is my first event and I've had a great time. So thank you for putting it on.
Welcome. And thanks for showing up, Angel Reyes and Associates. They sent a crew, so thank you for that.
Yeah, so my question is regarding Google Business profiles, and specifically the reviews. So trying to get reviews in an authentic and credible manner with Google is really important. What are some tools or strategies that you have for obtaining reviews, but not just any reviews, getting them to stick, avoiding the silent review issue, and just being able to build your local presence on GBPs and review removals? That's always an issue too.
All right, I'll start.
Go.
He's going to be smarter because he's going to write some numbers down.
you're good.
So, for me, first of all, is to understand what the Google guidelines for reviews are. And my viewpoint is I interpret them as very inclusive of any experience that someone has with the firm. So again, we all think, get clients to leave us reviews. And no question, you should. Deliver remarkable experience. Where people want to sing your praises, send them to Google Business Profiles. But that's only one dimension. This was said earlier. Someone said, start thinking about reviews during the intake process. So, hey, did you have a good experience with their intake? Even if it's a turn down, they never become a client, it's another opportunity to consider, someone that's like, I had a really, you invest this money in awesome intake people, and they're doing this nurturing, like, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Even though we're not able to help you, that might be a way to motivate a review. In fact, I've seen, I use this example in talks all the time, but Ken Levinson's firm does a good example of this. You'll see in the reviews, even though Ken couldn't help me, he pointed me in the right direction, got me the help that I needed, even though he wasn't the right lawyer for me. So that's the second thing. But you got to get even more creative than that. Things like you're going to do a webinar, right? You do a webinar on traffic safety tips or going back to school bus safety tips. I might do that on YouTube again because I want to get that all that good, rich expertise and commentary and UGC content fed by the machines, and then say, hey, if you enjoyed the webinar, right? If you thought our firm put on a good webinar, we'd really appreciate hearing your feedback and send them to your Google Business Profile link. So again, some people will say, well, that's a little bit dicey. Is that an experience with the firm? I say yes. I mean, you're out there in the community taking a leadership position, educating your community on safety tips. I know a lot of firms will do the idea of like, they'll say, hey, look, we're going to conduct a focus group on a certain thing. So they'll take everybody out to the local, they'll do a co-marketing thing with a local restaurant. They'll buy people dinner, or you're going to buy people coffee if you want to do it a little bit lower budget. And then you do the focus group and then you say, hey, if you had a good experience at the focus group, we'd love to hear from you, send them to the Google Business Profile. And so again, for me, it's like, what experiences can we deliver to our community outside the context of representation that people would be willing, that you can provide a great experience, that they'd be willing to leave a review? That's the way that I'd be thinking about doing that. And, look, will some get filtered? They might. Are there problems with having a bunch of review velocity, like a bunch of people at the same time? There are. So maybe you're going to do some staggered email nurture campaigns to be like, we know you attended our webinar last week. We'd love if you'd be willing to leave us a review or let us know what you think, stuff like that. But like, getting out of, I think the mindset shift is that only happy clients singing our praises are where we send to Google Business Profiles. There are all these other experiences that we can deliver that are reviewable. That's what I'd shift some of my focus to.
So Case Status used to talk about this quite a lot. They have the Net Promoter Score check-in throughout different phases of an engagement. And one of the things that they talked about was using that data to drive really, really positive reviews. The concept is very simple. If you have someone who's happy throughout the entire process, ask them for a review, right? We heard yesterday, I think, someone say, anytime someone is happy, ask them for a review, right? And that may be a bit too much. I don't know. Maybe it's not. It can get a little heavy. There is definitely review fatigue among, Joe Public. Waiter, like you guys know this, you experience this yourselves. But I think knowing and monitoring for happiness. So yes, expand the denominator of who could possibly write your review. Because the content in the reviews is so unbelievably important, I would be maniacal about trying to get every signed client who's actually going through the process to write a detailed review as much as possible. I'll mention this, I don't think we talked about this. Google updated their guidelines to say you can't specifically ask to name an employee in their review. That is so fucking stupid on so many levels. The most effective thing you can do is reward your employees for being called out. And I don't even blab by the premise that like Google doesn't want the content about you. You really want to talk to Dr. Jeff because he's the best heart surgeon. Like they want that content. I also don't know how on earth they would police it. So I would absolutely be rewarding your staff for generating reviews. I tend to be a follow the Google guidelines guy, but that is just stupid.
You know, and I'll just give another example. I'm going to say this and people are going to maybe eye roll and stuff, which is fine. But like, look at the example that Top Dog does, right? He generates reviews from his social posts. Like he has these absurd social videos and you can read the reviews. They'll say, oh my gosh, I love your Instagram stuff, or I love your radio creative, or whatever it is. Now, that's a little looser. I might not be trying to necessarily do that, but the idea there is that you can do social content that could generate a review. I mean, think about the 10K thing. Like again, the more that you can get, I think Conrad's right, you want to try to find ways to make sure that the review content is on topic. And so where you're like, if you're a motor vehicle accident attorney, like doing things to support, you know, maybe rehabilitation centers or places where other people, other service providers that are assisting injury survivors, you want to like do co-marketing things with them, but put content on that. People will say, I love that you're doing that community work. Like I wanted to just share that I was like, you know, I was an injury survivor, and you know, so send those people that are consuming that media on social media. That's an opportunity to say, like, hey, I love what you're doing in my community. How can I help you do more of it? Maybe go share your story on a review. Or, and this is the other thing too, and I know this is questions about review, but I was trying to talk about this earlier. That might be the opportunity to have that person create user-generated content on their own social profile, talking about how much they love the webinar or how much they love the 10K work that you did or the cause of your support. The point is that getting people to talk about your firm across all of these different surfaces, that's the key for increased visibility in the AI search context too.
All right. Next question. These are great.
And isn't this fun?
I like this part.
Hello.
Hello.
So my question is about like how to get involved in like Reddit discussions organically and not come across as like promoting your firm as an in-house marketing person and not getting banned for like spamming your own links essentially.
Yes. I'm going to give a couple. The one, let's just all acknowledge it's very, very tricky. The first thing that I would look for is you want to look for subs that you think the moderator is. I think the geographic subs, right? So it's like it's a Chicago subreddit. If you're there and you're like, and it's a lawyer profile, right? So it's like, and you know, some of this challenge is like everything else with the lawyers is like getting the lawyers buy-in to have a Reddit profile. But I'd have a profile of the lawyer themselves. You work closely with the lawyer. I'm very like submit things for pre-approval or have kind of guidelines on what the conversation can be. But if you're going to help facilitate that, lawyer profile, firm assets, links and all that kind of stuff. And then I would be participating in conversations that are relevant, and it doesn't necessarily have to be legal specific, but like, we'll stick with the 10K. Is there a subreddit about the 10K? Well, the lawyer should be there talking about like, hey everybody, I just want to let everybody know we're doing this giveaway for people that want to have shoes, they want to buy shoes, go enter that here. If a moderator is going to ban you because you're saying we're giving away free shoes, like pick a different sub. I think that kind of thinking though, where you're like, there's my authentic self. It's a community subreddit, and you're participating in relevant conversations to the sub. I think you're going to be in good shape. And the issue that you run into is where you start going into like, oh, I've been practicing for 500 years and, I went to the best law school. Oh, and by the way, we're giving away shoes at the 10K. Like that's the problem. And so the more that it is like just organic participation, especially if you have a story, Gesundheit, especially if you have a story that connects, right? So it's like, it's the Chicago, just so that for my own benefit of my brain, I'm going to stick with the 10K thing. So it's like, hey everybody, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Thomas Murphy. I'm a lawyer in the community, but I've been a passionate runner for the last 25 years. Super excited about the 10K. In fact, we're going to be doing a giveaway, so we hope you show up and we're giving away water bottles and gift cards for getting running shoes. Can't wait to see you there. That kind of engagement in Reddit, I think, is extremely effective. And a lot of people will say, well, like that has nothing to do with personal injury or car accident and stuff. And it's like, Yeah, that's right, because that's not what that sub's about, but you're getting visibility to Q&A site. And so guess what? When people do searches about 10Ks in my area, that sub comes up, they see the lawyer there, that's branding, right? And especially, and again, take that idea back that I was talking about earlier, taking it from beyond just visibility, hey, click on my Reddit profile, or send me a message, or click on my profile, and I've got a link to sign up for the shoes, right? So now you're taking that visibility and turning into action to take those Reddit users and get them in an opt-in list on email. Now, that's a more community-focused one. I'm sure that you're gonna see in some of these geographic ones where there's actual conversations about car accident lawyers, right? And so one thing you might consider doing is when you have those available to you, and let's just say reviews aren't an issue for you on Google Business Profile, and someone's like, how can, you're handing them a check, and they're like, how can I help you? You're like, you know what? There's this subreddit. I know you're not a Reddit user, but there's a subreddit. If you're willing to go on there and share your experience with the firm on that subreddit. Now, again, if it's a brand new user, they don't have a Reddit account, you might have issues with getting banned and that kind of thing, getting moderated. But if and maybe that's part of your workflow is you're developing a rapport with your clients. You're like, hey, do you happen to use Reddit? Oh yeah, I'm a prolific Reddit user. Like those are the people I'd be like, send them to Reddit to say nice things about you. Think of Reddit as a review platform in that context. Those are just two ideas off the top of my head.
I would take it more subtly then. I think your objective is to get that community to recommend you, not organically. I don't even care that you're a lawyer, especially sliding into this. So we'll use the 10K thing as an example. Do the 10K thing if you are a runner and you're going to talk about running and talk about your favorite races and talk about the next race and all that shit. And the people who like you, because the reality is I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been in legal for 30 years. I still can't tell you if a single one of my clients is a good lawyer. We don't know. I know that I like some of them. I know that I don't like some of them, right? And I know who I would recommend, but I don't know if they do a good job. And so the whole goal for me is I will support people who share an affinity. And if you happen to be a runner and you can get deep in that community, go at it. But I think what you want is that know, like, and trust because of who you are, not even the lawyer thing. And I think the end goal, the people who are nailing those forums the best, this happens a lot I like fast cars, right? And so fast cars, people like fast cars tend to have expensive cars and they tend to wreck them all the time. This is a little great community for the lawyers who are really into exotic cars and it's never the lawyer asking for the referral. You watch this, it's never the lawyer. It's always the community. And I think that's your end goal.
I'm gonna give you another idea. Own the sub. Create the sub for the 10K. There is no sub for the 10K. Hey, we're super active with this 10K. If you're a runner and you're gonna be at the event, sign up to join our Reddit sub on the event. We do updates, we share runner stories, profiles there, answer running questions.
And hire the photographer and put the free pic so you don't have to pay for your pic. That's a great way to kiss up to runners.
You.
Yeah, oh, great. Mr. Lee, if this involves a square dot.
It does not involve a square dot, but it could if you want me to ask that.
We will talk about this later.
Okay. So my question is about, I love the brand, the community, all in on that, but that takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. So for a direct response, where are your first dollars going?
LSA pay-per-click. Yeah. So LSA pay-per-click, Google Local, if you don't have a square dot in a round hole.
All right, let's make it harder. What's next?
From a direct response perspective, Facebook.
That's what I was gonna say too.
It shocks me that this works, but it does.
You can see it. And by the way, speaking of Facebook, again, because if you're doing it yourself or you want to help your agency out, Facebook has an ads library. And if you come to a conference or you listen to a podcast and you hear one of these big time lawyers talking about oh, we're crushing it on the direct response on Meta, go type their firm name into the Facebook ads library to see what their creative looks like, because either it's working for them and they're saying it's working, now you got your direct response advertising creative, or they're lying, right? So you get to test it. But I think when you hear somebody that says, this is working for me, go type them into the Facebook ads library, look at their ads, look at what the messaging is for inspiration for how you can apply what's working for them for your own direct response Meta ads.
Jeff Avery from Doyle Dennis Avery in Houston.
So to add to the FOMO, yesterday Conrad went through some great agents or agentic loops that you were talking about for largely it seemed like intake. It seems to me that like SEO is an even richer field for agents and agentic loops and all that type of new technology. Well, first, what are y'all doing and what should we be doing for that type of agentic evaluation for SEO?
For SEO, the reason I showed what I showed yesterday was because I've been trying to solve that for like literally decades, and we can do that now. Down at the individual level from an SEO perspective, I will tell you, so it is a really, the SEOs don't talk about this. This is our dirty secret right now. Because of the massive changes in traffic, it's very difficult right now to pinpoint things that are working versus things that aren't. And so the feedback loop, the data cycle on this, like it used to be like a much more stable market. You do this, you get more traffic, hopefully get more clients. Good job, SEO, right? You could look at things like local search and, you use the local Falcon or some other tools and like you can see those changes. Good job. As search traffic has declined, the data points are harder to actually identify that you're making improvements. I think it's become harder over the last 12 months.
I'm trying to frame the question. Like, what are we really trying to drive at here? What's the real root of this question?
So what I'm reading here is like, how are we using agentic agents to improve what we're doing from and prioritize what we're doing from an SEO perspective?
Right. It seems to me that that's a huge advantage. Like all the AI visibility stuff is what it is, but there's this automation level of whether it's competitor analysis or backlink analysis or content analysis that we can do at a level that we never would be able to do.
I got it. So there's a not sponsoring today because it wouldn't make sense. It's Firm Pilot, right?
I was going to talk about Firm Pilot. I was thinking of Ahrefs Agent A. Have you used that? I think that's very useful. But again, I think about like, because when you say agentic, what I think about is like the taking the action part, right? So it's like Agent A might do the analysis, but then do you want to deploy the agent against your website? And I'm going to tell a story. And I'm not, no casting aspersions, but this is the stuff you got to watch out for.
Would you like to say who?
Nope. Firm deploys agent on website. Guardrails in place, instructions in place, knowledge in place, trying to do the best they can to mitigate hallucinations and doing all these things that they don't want it to do. Agent decides, hey, you know what would be a great thing to do? Let's create a attorney bio page for one of our competitors on our site. And then our site ranks for our competitor law firm name. And so people searching for this other lawyer come to our site and say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. And they're like, so-and-so doesn't work here. But guess what? We do the same thing. And in fact, we have more experience and blah, blah, blah. That's the risk that's out there. And of course, that resulted in grievances and lawsuits and yada, yada, yada. And so if you're going to deploy agents, this is why the agent things, I think AI is amazing as an assistive technology. It's awesome for the analysis. It's awesome for insights. It's awesome for blind spots. It's awesome for all the things that we've talked about in terms of like performing research and getting all of your data from all these sources together and then letting the AI go and like try to find opportunities for you to publish stuff and do stuff different. But once you cross into agentic land where you're like, without human oversight, I'm gonna go do a thing, that's where I get nervous. Now, as anybody who's used Claude knows, you can set it up so that it requires your approval, right? So it's like, you go do all the stuff over here, and then it's like, would you like me to publish this page? And you get an opportunity to review it, and then you're like, cool, push publish, and then it goes and does it. I think for me, that's about as agentic as I would possibly get right now. I think we're, the promise right now is that someday the agents are going to do, it's agent to agent, right? It's going to be like, my consumer agent is going to go work with your booking agent to go find a bunch of different law firms and go schedule appointments. Sounds great, But again, like, are we there yet for that? I don't know. Should you be putting some of your budget towards like investing in that potential future? Sure. But gosh, that just seems like a longer term speculative play than like, trying to capture, real humans now and get real people to think about you now. So I know that's not really responsive, but it's more of like a cautionary thing than anything else. But I think if you're going to use agents to do something, there's got to be a human in the loop at that final step before they go deploy it, so that you can actually see what, especially in the publishing context, that this is going to, this is okay for me to look. And then you start thinking about it because like at scale, and you mentioned another kind of like automated SEO thing. You're like, all right, I got 2,000 pages on my site.
Right.
You go deploy the AI in the background. AI says we should change the title tag, change the meta description, change the H1 tag, answer first content, because Gyi and Conrad said that at Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.
Write these other 1,000 pages.
Are you going to go review that for 1,000 pages? How much time did it save? Maybe it does. Maybe you're sitting there, or you have somebody on your team, or maybe there's something that you delegate, or you've got an outsourced provider that has quality guidelines that's going to review each single one and say, yep, sign off, and click the button. Maybe that saves some time. Maybe it doesn't. But I think the idea, the stuff the AI can do from an insights and analysis and blind spot standpoint, I think is more valuable, at least at this stage, than just like deploying the agent on its own.
To answer your question, I would go to the two people, and I can't remember the other guys, the guys we met in Chicago who sat next to us unwittingly. Mega. If I had the money, and I wouldn't recommend this, but if I wanted to actually answer that question, I would go to both of those businesses and run a test with them.
Well, and we'll give a shout out to Mega and AJ from Mega, who was very generous at this time, like talking us through it.
He was very generous, except we fucked up the recording. So
we screwed up the recording, so we couldn't do the recording.
So it now feels like we're silencing him.
Right, I know, and I apologize for that. So we're giving him airplay on the pod. Ask the AI companies what their quality checks are, because he described that there are certain core things in the media management that they don't turn over to the bot wholesale. And so I think that, and this is the thing about these bots, right? Like there's all sorts of stuff that you can do, like that you're going to feel like you've mitigated the risk of hallucination, you've mitigated the risk of it taking some kind of action that you don't want it to, you've maximized guardrails. And I get all that. But then I see the headlines of like, Claude breaks out of holding system and hacks into 3 other companies. And I'm like, that just doesn't, if they're having trouble with it, how is my startup Agentic media management company gonna navigate that? And they probably have an answer, but until I rely on, that last slide, I keep going to the same thing. Like, don't trade efficiency, automation, client experience, visibility, and trust. Like, I'm not ready to make that jump myself, I guess.
All right, next question in the back.
Hi, Delisi Friday.
There we go.
I'm not going to ask a question about referrals. You mentioned LinkedIn from the stage. You mentioned LinkedIn on the last presentation when you were talking about AI and SEO. And I think a lot of us in this room walked around this summit and said, hey, I know you from LinkedIn. So my question is, what role or roles do you think LinkedIn is playing in the legal marketing industry?
I'm going to give you the 2 different answers. One, and we've been talking about LinkedIn. LinkedIn's like super hot right now. We've been talking about LinkedIn for a long time, even before, because it has professional intent, right? So from a networking, professional relationship development, referral relationship development, super powerful. Because again, there are private groups on Facebook. There are people on Facebook. But let's face it, like we're on Facebook because we want to see pictures of our friends' kids and stuff.
Those are over 40, dude.
I'm over 40. LinkedIn has business intent, and so I think from a networking standpoint, from a telling your story standpoint, being vulnerable, all that kind of stuff in a professional context, LinkedIn should be on your short list. And that's really in the relationship world. As you mentioned, as it come up at the conference and was in the last deck, LinkedIn is also highly cited in the professional context by AI. And so I think that there's a value of publishing on LinkedIn. Content gets crawled and indexed by Google. It just shows up. It shows up in a lot of the professional types of queries and prompts. And so I think there's a barnacle SEO aspect to publishing on LinkedIn for search visibility. Here's my thing, in case, people that know me on LinkedIn that I'm like not so key on. If it's obvious that you're copying and pasting ChatGPT slop to LinkedIn, you're trading like this idea of like, well, everybody's on LinkedIn, everybody's talking about LinkedIn, and so I'm just going to publish this stuff on LinkedIn. And I'll tell you, there are people that I know, that I'm friends with, that I engage with their content knowing that AI wrote it. But I'll tell you what, in the back of my head, I'm like, I know I'm not really engaging with this person. And so I struggle with it, honestly, to be honest with you, because, and again, I'm not like here to be the LinkedIn police, but I keep coming back to the same thing. You got three options. Everything you do does one of three things. It either builds more trust, right? It's trust neutral. It's some kind of activity you do that doesn't really impact trust at all, or it erodes trust. And I just think you gotta be mindful about like, don't trade efficiency and automation for trust. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure I get tricked. I'm sure some of you really smart people out there are crafting LinkedIn posts and you're like, Gyi can't tell if this is AI. And you're probably right. But if it doesn't, right? Like again, I know professional colleagues that I have that I'm like, I know they're not really there. Well, guess what? I don't care how many likes or comments or shares or whatever they're getting, it eroded trust with me. So I'll leave it at that. But I think LinkedIn, in terms of like just answering the question, I think LinkedIn should be a high priority. Maybe it's, in my opinion, for just like big picture off the cuff, like talking about like what platforms I would dedicate resources to, maybe right behind YouTube, in my opinion.
All right, so my answer is a little bit different. I think you need to recognize probably LinkedIn is not direct client acquisition, right? Unless you're looking for specific business profile. Like if you're Compass Rose, we talked about them yesterday.
Yeah, if you're an employment lawyer.
If you're an employment lawyer.
And by the way, Jacob's here. Go talk to Jacob. He's got case studies showing, like especially in that context, direct clients.
Employment lawyer, great example, right? Like I want to find people who worked for McDonald's, whatever, right? Like so those things very real. But if your clients aren't typically a LinkedIn user, I think LinkedIn, obviously not the right thing. Great for networking, obviously, if you will put the time into it. The other thing that I think is overlooked, and I mentioned this before, I think we haven't talked about this enough. Name search, man. LinkedIn is the primary vetting category for people going deep. And so I would have every one of my lawyers with a robust LinkedIn profile and something posted within I'm pulling this out of my butt, but within the past 2 weeks, right? You guys all know those LinkedIn profiles that like they clearly haven't been touched since, 2018, and you have no idea who you're actually looking at. So the recency of what's showing up there gives credence to the content that's there. But LinkedIn as a SEO name search thing, absolutely a big deal. Next one. I love your t-shirt.
Thank you so much. And I didn't have to get injured to receive it, so that was the best part.
You're one of the lucky ones.
So, Conrad, you kind of touched on this during the CEO panel earlier. And Monday at Big Truck and Auto, the only note that Lloyd took during your talk was that rent should come out of the marketing budget. So thank you so very much for that. But a follow-up question for that. So when you're talking about that, are you talking about the main office where all of our team members are housed and we're actively working out of? Or are you talking about these satellite Centipede offices?
So just to clarify on this question, we're talking about where your rent for your offices belongs in your P&L. And I believe you can make better business decisions by including the satellite office rent as a marketing cost in your P&L. The objective, and even if you put 2 people in there, but the reason you have that office, and by the way, this satellite office strategy, unbelievably effective, but in order to just process this the correct way in your head, that is not normal rent, that is a marketing expense, but it is not for your primary office. Your primary office is your primary office, right? And that is normal rent. It is not a marketing expense, but like as you're working on the Centipede strategy, building out your overall geographic profile, those belong as a marketing expense. Absolutely. Any other questions?
What's going on? Brian with Norton Lee Cox. First time. Appreciate this. So we're in Orlando. Our lawyers and myself, we don't speak Spanish, but we want to go into the bilingual area. A lot of our team underneath the lawyers, they all are bilingual. So what are some tips and suggestions to kind of get the wheels off the ground? We started creating some social media pages, specifically bilingual for us. But what would be some tips and suggestions to get the wheels off the ground for our bilingual, Spanish market?
Can I ask a clarifying question because the audio is a little low? You do not have anyone who speaks Spanish?
The attorneys and myself do not. So if I was to go out to an event, I wouldn't be the best person there, but the staff does. Everyone below the attorneys speaks Spanish. And so we just trying to get some ideas and suggestions for wheels off the ground and going in the bilingual route.
And you have someone in intake who does?
Yes. Yep. Intake, case managers.
So this is probably not going to be a really helpful answer. But I think it's particularly true in appealing to that market. I think you need representation in the market. I think that's, I mean, we heard about women the other day. Like, I think it is really important to have representation of who you want to represent. That's a good pithy little quote.
Should we share Mama Bear?
Oh, fuck. Yes, go look up. It is cringy. It is two middle-aged white guys pretending not to be. Okay?
With AI.
With AI. And it is cringy as hell, and it is a brand they're putting effort behind.
But it's the same problem that you might have, just not with AI online, if you're trying to, project, cultural inclusiveness in a community that you don't have representation. Like that's the problem, the issue that Conrad is raising.
And so I think, and this is especially true, and I, as possibly the most Caucasian person in Nashville right now, this is especially, I cringe to say this, I think this is especially true for the Hispanic market. The sense of community is much stronger in the Hispanic market, and I'll let my politics fly right now. A lot of that market is fucking terrified of speaking to anyone in an authority perspective, right? And so I think it is increasingly difficult to not work with that market when you don't have representation. And the key in that market, as we've seen over and over again with my clients who've been successful there, has been genuine community engagement. I would spend some time talking to Alex de Castroverde about how he has made that part of Vegas his market, and he couldn't have done it if he wasn't Alex. I think you need to hire someone who represents, a lawyer who represents your clients in multiple uses of the word represent.
Yeah, I think that's right, especially from the community standpoint. I mean, again, and just to distinguish, there's a difference between marketing to and appealing to a specific community and just representing that we're a bunch of, our firm is not representative of that community, but we speak Spanish, right? Like those are two different things. So like, can you publish content in Spanish? And are there things you can do from a technical standpoint to like make sure that the machines understand that, this is Spanish content? Like, yes, but that's a different type of issue. And so again, for me, it's like, and then you talked about social, it's like publishing social videos that are bilingual. If you're clear about like, we are Spanish speaking, that's a different thing than trying to appeal to a certain community. Just to short circuit all of this, it only works when you have representation. Like you really need to be embedded in the community with representation in the community, supporting the issues that the community is grappling with, being at the events that the community's passionate about. But it all starts with representation.
And I'll tell you, part of my answer is colored by the fact that you're in Orlando. You're in South Dakota, like throw up a bunch of pages that say habla español, right? And that might be enough. But you're in a saturated market for whom this is really important to that audience. Their competition is fierce there. It's not like they're just figuring it out. Well, Gyi, it looks like we have completely exhausted the audience. We are out of time. Everyone would like to get an iced tea. It is delightfully not as hot as it has been on the stage from yesterday and the day before.
Much cooler today. Just once again, reiterate thank you all so much for being here. It means so much to us. If you liked this episode of Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, please head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you consume Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. Until next time, Conrad and Gyi saying farewell from Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.